Hi, and welcome to this webinar on websites to get your learners reading and writing. Hopefully it'll give you a few new ideas for things to do for your learners for homework outside the classroom. So the first thing to think about really is why reading and writing outside of class. So you just think for a minute about, there are lots of reasons for doing reading and writing clearly inside class as well. But just thinking for a minute about what it is that's useful about these skills outside of the classroom to help promote language development. Hopefully you've got a few of these. I think one of the big ones is that it promotes autonomous learning. So if you can get your learners interested in learning outside of the classroom, where they possibly are only for a few hours a week, then that's going to definitely have a big influence on their language learning. It gives extensive language practice. There's lots of good research evidence to suggest that language learning is an unconscious process that is aided by large exposure to the target language. So the more exposure that we can give learners by reading and listening, of course, then that's got to be a good thing, and writing and producing work themselves as well. There's two other things here. It can be used to consolidate work in class, so you can look at the things that you've already done in class, the things you've already covered, and make sure that learners have understood this and that they remember this, but also, of course, that it can be used to extend the work in class and to give them extra stuff that maybe you didn't have time for in the class that's useful for them to do outside. And there's lots and lots and lots of possibilities on the net. Clearly reading and writing for homework aren't new. These are things that teachers have been doing since people have been teaching, I guess. But I think the internet has opened up a wealth of new possibilities, and that's really what I'm going to look at today. One of the difficulties can be for learners using the internet is that it's just too difficult, particularly with learners who are at low levels. This is an issue. Clearly most of the internet is, or a lot of the internet, is written for authentic purposes, for native speakers or for very fluent readers. And it is just difficult. I will look at a potential possible solution to that problem. There's a website that's helpful, but it is a problem. And I've got here sorting the wheat from the chaff. Clearly there is just so much out there that finding something which is helpful and interesting and useful, as opposed to the large amounts of other stuff, is difficult, and that's where I think a teacher can be really helpful. And clearly motivation. You can see in my picture here this poor girl who's dozing off over her homework. It is difficult for learners to maintain motivation, and again I think that's where a teacher can be very helpful, because they can really help to maintain that. So the sites we're going to look at today, there are 5 sites that we're going to have a look at. 3 of them are reading sites, although 2 of those, Storybird and Bookr, both are writing sites as well, the things you can write on. Lingro is more about reading and helping you to read other sites on the internet. And then the writing sites are really about publishing something yourself on the net, and easy and free ways for you to do that and for your learners to do that. So clearly, as we said, there is a wealth of stuff out there on the internet. There is so much variety and possibility, but one of the difficulties may be that it is just too difficult for your learners. So one issue with it, one thing that to look at here is to look at sites which maybe have reading material which isn't so difficult. This site, called Storybird, is just a lovely, lovely site. What it is it's picture books, internet picture books. Now you might think, oh, those look a bit childish, and some of them certainly are aimed at children, but there's plenty which aren't. This one that I've got here on the slide, A Recipe for Life, is very simple. It's things like, you know, a gallon of cuddles and you know, a few laughs or whatever it is. But it's an adult themed book, although the language is very simple and short, and therefore pretty accessible. These books, you can log on to the site, you can log on, but you don't have to read the books. You can see at the top it says you create and read, so if you click the read button there, you get just a wealth of books. There are lots and lots and lots of books, and you can sort those by age group, by illustrator, by author. I think some of them are tagged as well, so you could sort by tag. There's just a lot of nice stuff on there. You can write your own. They have collections of these lovely illustrations by particular artists, and you can choose some and write your own Storybird. You can write a book. The only thing that I would say with this is that it does require quite a lot of creativity, because you're limited to the pictures that are there. So it makes it quite tricky. I had a go and I found it really quite difficult actually to do. I just didn't have sufficient imagination. And I think generally I'm quite a creative person, but I struggled. But they are really nice to read, and as I say, they're on a wide range of subjects, from ones which are definitely aimed at children to ones, there's a really heart-wrenching one called Dying to be Thin, which is about a teenage girl's struggle with anorexia, and I just thought it was a really lovely thing to maybe look at in class. I mean, clearly depending on your learners, you know, to discuss the issues around that. You can also just give the learners this site and ask them to find a Storybird that they like. Once you've found one, you can't print them off unless you pay for them. It's not expensive, it's a couple of quid or something, it's really not expensive, but you do, if you want the rights to one that you've written, you have to pay for it. However, you can look at other people's, and you can email them to people, email a link to people, and you can embed them on blogs and what have you. So there's quite a lot that you can do with them. And I just think it's a really nice site, so do have a look at it. So just to summarise that, I mean, they're fantastic illustrations, wide range of stories, and you can view them online for free. You have to pay for a hard copy, so these are really nice things about it. But you do need to be quite creative to write one, because, as I say, you have to write it around those illustrations. Another site which is quite similar in that it produces picture books online is this one called Bookr. Now, the thing to be careful of with this in terms of the web address, if you look back in the slides, you'll find it, but it's not Bookr. If you put Bookr in Google, you don't find it. It's www.pimpamPum.net/Bookr. So just be careful of that. So this is again a very similar idea, except that it uses photographs, and the photographs come from Flickr. Now, Flickr, if you don't know, is a public repository for photographs, and there are literally hundreds of thousands, I hesitate to say millions, but there's certainly hundreds of thousands of photographs on there of everything you can imagine. Now, they are people's photographs, but you're not infringing copyright here, because you're not taking a copy of this. It stays on the Bookr site, so you have a link to it, but it doesn't become yours, therefore there's not a copyright issue. And these are just lovely. So you can either read other people's, and you can do that by, it says, you can see there, it says you can also visit the archive. So if you click on the archive, there's just a wealth there of ones people have written. And again, some of them are very simple, some of them are a bit more complicated. But if you want to write your own, again, it's very, very straightforward. You just write a title of your photo book, as it says there, and write the author. And then these little icons on the bottom right hand side, you can use these to find, actually, yeah, sorry, it's not, it's at the bottom where it says go, if you see at the bottom. If you put the tag in there, if you put something in the tag, for example, if you want to write a book about horses, just put in horses, there will be a million pictures of horses. I live in a really small village and I put the name of my village in there and there were photographs of it. You know, it's just phenomenal what's in there. So this makes it much easier for writing something. And clearly you just have to write a sentence per page. The default is just 4 pages, and these kind of flick over in a very realistic way on the web page, which is rather nice. So again, this is a really nice site to have a look at. Here's just an illustration of my husband comes from a place called Lamel, and I just put Lamel in there, and there was loads of pictures. So as I say, just very easy, just by pushing that go button, you get the photograph there on the front page, if you like, of your book, and you can just type in your data, you know, whatever you want to write in your book. So I think, again, to summarise this one, I think it's a really motivating thing because it's very easy to get something that looks really professional and lovely. There are lots and lots of pictures of everywhere and everything. So, you know, you could get learners to do, for example, something about the town where they live, or a place they've visited, or, you know, the animals they like, or their hobbies, or anything. It's very easy for them to do that. It's easy to use, it's free, and again, it's quite a nice thing if you've got an IWB in your classroom, quite nice to use as a basis for a presentation in class. You could get them to prepare one and show each other, so, you know, an easy sort of presentation, just a bit different to PowerPoint maybe. Okay, so the next site I want to look at is this one, which is quite different. So Storybird and Bookr are quite similar, certainly along the same, they have the same basic idea. Lingro is completely different, it's quite different. As we talked about, one of the problems of learners using the internet is that there's just a lot of vocabulary they don't understand, and this is where Lingro can come in. So Lingro is a way in which you can make, it's an online dictionary, effectively, that's the bottom line, it's an online dictionary. So what you can do is, instead of viewing a page, a web page, in your ordinary browser, you can put the URL into where it says number 1 there. You just click and put the URL into that number 1, and then click the arrow to the right hand side of it. And what that will do is it will load that particular page, just that page of the internet, into Lingro. And what that then means is that every single word on that page becomes clickable, and when you click it, it will give you a definition, a dictionary definition of the word. So there are a couple of downsides with this. What it means is that any of the links on the website also become clickable, but not links anymore, so they become clickable as dictionary definitions. If you want to go to a different page, you have to load that new page up in Lingro. So that's, you know, a bit of a faff, but it's not terrible, it doesn't take very long to load. There are dictionaries, you can have this in an English to English dictionary, but also there are dictionaries in not every language, but quite a range of languages, so that you can, you know, use these bilingually as well. An issue that somebody pointed out, and it's absolutely right, is that it will only translate individual words, so it won't translate phrases. So if you've got phrasal verbs, if you've got idioms, if you've got all of this kind of thing, it won't translate those. I think it only translates things as individual words. So that is a small disadvantage. But I think that overall this is a really helpful and convenient way for learners to to use websites and material that otherwise would be rather difficult.